episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
Live from New York City, it is Surviving the Survivor, the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. We are at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. This is day 4 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial with the star witness, Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend of about 11 years. She has been on the stand the last couple of days, and today the cross-examination of her began, and it's pretty fascinating. We're going to dig right into it. The headline, though, is that during the cross-examination, Anna Estevao, she is the woman. We thought it was going to be Tenny Garagos crossing Cassie Ventura. It is a woman. Her name is Anna Estevao. We had a feeling it was going to be a woman. We just thought it was going to be a different woman. So she has been very gentle, but very effective, the consensus is, with her cross-examination. The headline, she got evidence admitted in, and Estevao did, and in a series of old BlackBerry messages, if you remember the BlackBerry, we're going back to 2009 here, they were pulling up a lot of old BlackBerry messages, and over 2 years after Cassie Ventura was with Sean Combs, when they were already entrenched in their dating life. She is asked to read some old BlackBerry messages. And one of them says, "I am always ready to freak off. I am always ready to freak off." As you'll recall, during direct examination, Cassie Ventura said it was always Sean Combs. He was always pushing the envelope. She never wanted to do it. Here, they get her to admit, through evidence admitted into court, that she is always ready to freak off. Also, this is a little more graphic, but we heard about how Sean Combs forced Cassie Ventura to participate in these freak-offs while she was on her menstrual cycle, while she had her period. And today there was another BlackBerry message exchange where she, in so many words, just to paraphrase, tells Sean Combs that she doesn't have her period, but even if she did have her period, she would be okay to, quote unquote, get down and have a freak off. So again, illustrating and illustrative of the fact that Cassie Ventura was apparently willing to do some of the things that during direct examination she says were forced upon her by Sean Combs. Now, I want to sort of preface all of this by saying over the last 2 nights, we've had some of the biggest experts in the world on our show at 7 p.m. in coercive control. And they talk about exactly this, that over a period of time, Cassie Ventura was essentially controlled. Now you're magnifying that because you're talking about a huge celebrity, a billionaire, a guy who made his fame and fortune off of rap music, off of the clothing line, different sorts of spirits. So he had a tremendous influence on her. But what the defense is trying to show is, hey, Cassie Ventura was a grown woman and she was making these decisions. They also got her to admit that she would get jealous of other women, that she would get jealous of other women. But on top of that, and coupled with that, she was the one in several of these BlackBerry messages who told Sean Combs that she was fantasizing about watching Sean Combs with a woman. Now, you'll recall most of these escorts almost across the board were male escorts, but Cassie Ventura said on direct that during several occasions, Sean Combs was the one that would persuade her to also be with a woman. But again, conversely, today, during the cross and using evidence, which are text messages and these BlackBerry messages, Cassie Ventura admitted in these messages that she would be aroused and turned on to see Sean Combs with another woman. Some of the specifics and the particulars from day to day. Of course, what is Sean Diddy Combs wearing? It appears he is wearing the exact same thing that he has worn every day, at least this week, and that is an oatmeal colored outfit, sort of monochromatic, lightish, grayish brown, both pants and sweater. And underneath the sweater, he has a white Oxford shirt. People have said, "Hey, Joel, can you not refer to it as a Mr. Rogers sweater?" So I will now refer to it as a grandpa-esque sweater. I hope that alleviates all the animus towards me about mentioning Mr. Rogers in the same breath. No offense to Mr. Rogers as Sean Combs, but he's looking professorial and he's wearing um, an old grandpa looking sweater. Old grandpa is what my kids would say as well. Meanwhile, Cassie Ventura, again, 8.5 months pregnant. She came out in a black kind of satin is the best word I can figure out to describe it. A black sateen jacket with sort of a larger lapel, a thicker lapel, underneath a white blouse and wearing black pants. We've seen her the last 2 days or 3 days in dresses with her baby bump, but today, slightly different look with a jacket, a blouse, and pants. So again, we thought that it was going to be Tenny, Teny Garagos, Mark Garagos's daughter, crossing Cassie Ventura. We saw Tenny walk in this morning. People said to her, "Hey, how are you? Nervous?" And she was answering questions, but then all of a sudden, it's another attorney on the defense team by the name of Anna Esteveo. She starts the cross at about 9:38 in the morning, local time, Eastern time. And she begins her cross basically by, very, very warmly greeting her, saying, "Hi, Miss Ventura. Basically, thank you for being here." She said they go through all the niceties, and she says, "You and Sean fell in love, uh, and you were together for 11 years. Yes. And you took care of him. Yes. He's a larger than life figure, right? Yes. But he's just Sean to you. Yes. Other people know him as Puff or P. Diddy, but you called him Sean. You knew the real Sean." Objection overruled. You knew the version of Sean that no one else knew. You knew the version even his family didn't know. So they're trying to establish that this was a really intimate relationship, obviously, between Cassie and Sean Combs. Now, keep in mind at this time, Sean Combs was reportedly madly in love with Kim Porter, who has since passed away, even describing her as his soulmate. But here they're showing that Cassie Ventura had this unique relationship with Sean Diddy Combs, that it was an intimate relationship, that it was a private relationship, and that she knew a side of him that other people didn't know. And the obvious other implication here is that even celebrities live private lives that not everyone needs to know about. Not everyone knows what goes on behind bedroom doors. And certainly in this case, Cassie Ventura was the one that knew what was happening behind closed doors because she was in this intimate and exclusive relationship with Cassie Ventura, that Sean Combs and Cassie were in this relationship. Uh, the defense continues and says, "Is this why it hurt you so much when he lied to you?" Um, Trying to get another side of Cassie that we actually heard about on direct. We heard on direct them bring out this testimony that Cassie Ventura was jealous at times of Sean Combs. And at one point, even her temper flared when she thought someone was taking photos of her. And she went and grabbed a woman and started to pull her out of a car in Connecticut, which is where her hometown is in the state of Connecticut. So they were sort of raising the issue. Well, maybe Cassie has a jealous side and another side because they were talking about the lies that he would create that were bothering her. Um, they even quoted her from direct observation saying, "You said in your own words that you were insanely jealous. Um, but you would continue to be together for over 11 years." So now they're showing the fact that despite the jealousy, despite the lying, despite the freak offs, that she remained with him for over a decade of her life. They then go back to the very beginning of the relationship. They talk about how Cassie Ventura fell in love quickly after her 21st birthday. At this point,
Hi, everyone. Just stand by.
I'm back, and I put on Do Not Disturb, and I'm still being disturbed. But here we go. So, um, they go back to the beginning of the relationship. And Cassie talks about how they did fall in love quickly after her 21st birthday. There is then a text message, and this relates to what happened before testimony started, before Cassie Ventura came out today. And this is actually very important. So, just going back a moment to before testimony today, they were arguing, the attorneys were, over Rule 412 and Rule 403 related to text messages. And we'll get the attorneys to break this down. In Manhattan, there's a very well-known attorney, Douglas Wigdor, and he's had massive settlements in his career, and he is Cassie Ventura's attorney. Um, he stepped in, and basically the argument in a nutshell is over text messages and whether or not Cassie Ventura has the right and the government have the right to sort of preview these text messages before and if they come into evidence. So this was an ongoing discussion, and then in the middle of this discussion, what got really interesting, Maureen Comey, again, the daughter of Jim Comey, the FBI director, she sort of interjects without any anticipation of this and says, look, the defense dumped 400 exhibits on us overnight, meaning Wednesday into Thursday. Today's Thursday. So the defense dumping 400 exhibits, and some of these exhibits are hundreds of pages long. They did say that some are duplicative, meaning that they repeat themselves, but the government said, what are we supposed to do here? We just got 400 new documents. Um, the defense made the case that we can kind of go one by one through these, that they don't have to deal with them all in a singular moment. The judge stepped in. He heard from Mark Agnifilo, who is the lead defense counsel, and Mark has a very kind of sweet, soft, smart way in the courtroom. And he said, "I promise, Judge, I'll do whatever I can to alleviate this burden on you and the court and the government, and we're working together with the government." At which point, Judge Arun Subramanian said, "I heard this yesterday. Nothing's been resolved. You guys better fix this by the end of the day today." So the defense has their work cut out for them. The defense also says, just to give you an idea about how grueling these trials are, he made it clear in open court that after court yesterday, the defense was working till about 3 or 3:30 in the morning to prepare for today. So it's not just court, it's what happens after court. That's almost when the real work begins. And they seemed ready and prepared, but they've got to be exhausted, having only gotten a few hours of sleep before heading back here to federal court in Lower Manhattan. So they get back to this text message. There's a message that presumably sort of relates to some of the stuff that was spoken about pre-testimony. And before this text message, which we don't know what it was, can be brought in, there's an objection on hearsay. But it's interesting because we literally hadn't seen the text message. And the objection was, this isn't even in evidence. You don't hear that too often. So there was a collective kind of nervous laugh from the court watchers trying to figure out what's going on. She's trying to ask a question about a text message. Anna Estevea is, but the text message isn't in evidence. The government lets the judge know this isn't in evidence. And then the objection, I believe, is sustained. The judge comes out and says, true, this exhibit's not in evidence. The defense then takes a different tact, and I'll have to ask the lawyers about this, but basically sort of circumvented by asking Cassie Ventura to read this particular piece of evidence silently. So then it's not really admitted into evidence, but Cassie could look at it. And they start asking questions. And they start asking what was going on at the time in the beginning of the relationship. Would you exchange messages on a regular basis? Yes, we would. And then they read a BlackBerry message between Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. And Sean Combs tells Cassie Ventura, "It makes me so happy that you would fly to Atlanta to see me." And Cassie Ventura responds, "I'd fly whenever and wherever you need me." And they're painting the picture of this beautiful budding romance back in 2009. Um, then they go to another piece of evidence, another BlackBerry exchange. But before showing it, they say, "Would you regularly send these emails and messages?" Objection, hearsay. Um, and that is overruled. And they start to ask within this body of the message, what is BG, the initials BG? And Cassie Ventura says, baby girl. By the way, it's important to note, it feels like Cassie has gotten, I don't want to say more comfortable, but the shock and awe of the first day and being the star witness has kind of worn off. Now she's in this role, but she sounds young, but more than that, she sounds very sort of monotone and disassociated from what's happening. It's like she's answering, but a lot of times it's almost like she's not there. They'll ask a question and she'll say, "Yes, that's true. No, I don't recall." So they're like very soft spoken, almost meek sounding answers. But I don't know. It feels like she's been beaten down so badly that maybe this is just the shell of herself that is present here because it is so overwhelming. So the answers, again, very monotone, very flat, very, for the most part, short in length. But they go back to this baby girl moniker. And then they start to read a portion of another BlackBerry message from Sean Combs to Cassie Ventura. And he says, "I love you so much." And she responds, "Are you hungry, Pop-Off?" Now, if you were following the direct examination, Cassie Ventura reveals that Sean Combs wanted a nickname, and Cassie Ventura came up with the nickname she had for her own grandfather, which is Pop Up, which is fitting because Diddy looks like a grandpa right now with the gray goatee, the gray beard, and that oatmeal colored old man's sweater. Not Mr. Rogers, but an old man's sweater. Uh, Sean Combs says, "Did you miss me?" Cassie Ventura says, "A lot, but you didn't even message me." Now, I got to tell you, when you're early on in romance, people can be a little, I don't know, maybe mushy. But the general, I think people have these impressions of these celebrities being superhuman, but you see here just how, um, I don't know, juvenile. It had, I wrote down a high school vibe to the exchanges, that they were just talking to each other, but it was hard to imagine that this is a grown woman and a man who's 17 years older than her. It was just very high school-esque in nature. No offense to any high schoolers out there who might be listening. The government then says they need a moment to review a document. This has happened occasionally. They try to bring in a document from April 4th of 2010. There is an immediate objection citing hearsay, which is overruled. Um, and then they go into a discussion about one of them saying they're going to sleep. So are we going to do this tomorrow? How could it be? And they're just kind of sending these love messages back and forth. And Cassie Ventura writes, "We're so in love, we don't do anything else. We're so in love, we don't do anything else." Again, painting the picture to the jurors that this was obviously a consensual relationship in the defense's opinion. And not only was it consensual, but this is a point more than 2 years into these freak offs at this point, if not longer in some of these messages, where Cassie Ventura is professing her unrequited love for Sean Combs. Um, Again, 2+ years into the freak offs. The first freak off, just so you know, happened about 6 months after they began dating back in 2007. So, roughly 2007, 6 months after they start dating is when the first freak off happens. So, we go from 2007 now to another message from August of 2009. and it says, "Amazing, love you so much. Uh, I, I I can't wait till we don't care anymore." And this is Cassie Ventura messaging Sean Combs. "I can't wait till we don't care anymore." And that has to do with their relationship going public. At this point, he's still with Kim Porter, he's still with other women, and he doesn't want the relationship going public. So the defense asks, "What do you mean by don't care?" And Cassie softly responds, "I'm not sure." And she sort of dances around it. But the obvious implication is that she wanted the relationship public. Sean Combs did not. And then finally, the question comes out, were you looking forward to being public with your relationship? And she answers very simply, very succinctly by saying yes. Um, and another message that this pulled on some heartstrings, she says, "I don't need your money. I need your love," because he was showering her with gifts and all the fame. "I don't need your money. I need your love." Why did you want to spend so much time with him? The defense asks. Why? She says, "Because I loved him." "But what made you fall in love with him?" And she says, "I liked him. He was a good person." You said you didn't want any disappointment, the defense asks. And she sort of just says, "Yeah, I just didn't want to be disappointed in my, with the way things were going in my life." That moment, just to give you a little color, there's some characters here in the courtroom. Early this morning, a male character who's an odd bird. He had some sort of electronic device that he wasn't supposed to have. He was tossed out of the courtroom. Well, there's a woman who is, let's put it this way. She is very pro Diddy, and she is occasionally just sort of blurting things out. This is in the overflow room, but in the overflow rooms, there are always at least two marshals at the back and the front watching the gallery, making sure no one has electronics. This woman just it cannot keep her mouth shut, and she's making constant remarks relative to Cassie's testimony, essentially saying Cassie did all this willingly. Why do I bring this up? Because it's New York City, there's characters, and the marshals promptly threw her out. Now, this happened with the same woman the last couple of days. So she bounces around from overflow room to overflow room, and I'm not sure what the exact situation is, other than I think she's known to the courthouse workers here, and they sort of let her come back in. But she is a huge distraction, especially to the media. So they get back to the testimony after this commotion. And by the way, no one in the actual courtroom knows that this is going on, but we're all annoyed because we're trying to listen and take notes. So they get back to the messages between Cassie and Sean, and she says, "I love you so much. You make me a stronger woman." And she says, and this is sad, and this got a collective sort of groan from the gallery, "I can't wait till we have a baby of our own." And this came up the other day, and it's particularly poignant and sort of touching and sad and sweet all at the same time, because Cassie right now is 8.5 months pregnant with Alex Fine, who is Sean Combs' former trainer. So she's talking about wanting to have Sean Combs' baby. And if you're following me on Twitter at podcast STS, I've been posting every day showing Alex walking out of the courtroom, and he looks like he wants to get into an octagon with Sean Combs. He looks very upset, very unhappy, very angry. He just quickly gets into his car with security and he walks away. And part of it is because I'm sure he has to listen to his now wife and soon to be mother of their third child talking about how she wanted to have a baby with Sean Combs. So this is heavy stuff. And this goes to show you these sorts of things, this sort of violence and domestic abuse, it has a ripple effect to so many other people, including Cassie's now husband. The line of questioning continued. The defense says or asks, "Is it fair to say he trusted you with his secrets?" "Yes." "You did freak offs to please him?" She says, "Not exactly." And the defense says, "Well, we'll get there." So they have something that's coming that's going to show that she did want to please him through these freak offs. But the intimation here is that Combs loved her and took care of her so much that he let her into his secret world. No one, not other people, but the privilege, if you will, and it depends how you look at it, was Cassie Ventura's and Cassie Ventura's alone. Moving now, they move forward and backward in time. We go to August 5th, 2009. Sean Combs uh, says, "I miss you already." Cassie Ventura says, "Me too." And suddenly the conversation switches to, "When do you want to freak off?" That's what Sean asks Cassie. "When do you want to freak off?" And this is when Cassie Ventura says, "I'm always ready to freak off." Now, this is 2.5 years into the relationship, and 2.5 years essentially after the freak offs have begun. And on direct, the entire premise of direct was to show that Cassie Ventura hated these freak offs, didn't want to be a part of them, and was sort of just dragged into them. Now, is there a psychological factor here? Of course there is. But in court, the defense did what they needed to do by having Cassie Ventura voluntarily say, by showing this message, "I am always ready to freak off." And she continues, "I can do it wherever. It doesn't matter to me. I can do it wherever and whenever, and it doesn't matter to me." We moved 2 days ahead to August 7th, and Sean Combs is now texting Cassie Ventura, and he says to her, "I want you to get real hot." Cassie Ventura says, "Me too. I want to be uncontrollable. I want to be uncontrollable." So, this is a woman who is definitely a victim. I don't think there's any doubt of domestic violence, but it's also a woman who the defense is showing that back in 2009 wanted some part, at least, of these freak offs, and even went so far as to say that during them she wants to be uncontrollable. They get to what they describe as an extremely explicit message. There's discussion about this message. It's not shown to anyone. I don't believe it was shown to the jurors, but it was shown to Cassie Ventura, and she was asked to read it. And 2 days after this particular message, another freak off is planned. At that moment, it's about 10:30 in the morning. Cassie Ventura, and this is now the second time this has happened, she says, "Can I please have a break?" And this was a very tough spot for her. She was basically, through evidence, through messages, BlackBerry text messages, and otherwise in emails, basically was shown to be interested in these freak offs. And now, and the question, "Can we have a break?" came up very abruptly, like she just needed to step away, and the judge granted it, and there was about a 10 or 15 minute break. So back on August 7th, 2009, Cassie Ventura, in reference to this same freak off coming up, says, "I can't wait either." Sean Combs responds, "I'm so horny." Cassie Ventura, "OMG, I was about to text you the same thing." Sean Combs, "You're supposed to seduce me all day." Cassie Ventura, "I feel like I want to F." That rhymes with duck, and they use the word. "I feel like I want to F." So again, showing her willingness, showing her attraction, showing her desire, not only for Sean Combs, but for these kinky freak offs as well. Then Sean Combs says again, "I'm so horny." He underscores it. He says it to her again. And this is important here. Cassie Ventura then, seemingly unsolicited, says, "I'm going to go to Dwayne Reed." For those who don't know Dwayne Reed, it's all over New York City. They're the equivalent of a CVS or a Walgreens, but really a New York-based company. So she says, "I'm going to go to Dwayne Reed. I'm going to get candles, and I will set up the room." And she's talking about the freak-off room. Again, August 7th, 2009, Cassie Ventura not only participating in a freak off, but saying she's going to help set it up. They get to a point where they're talking about an actual freak off video. As you know, some of these were filmed. Cassie Ventura had a clip apparently, because in this next exchange, she says, I just deleted the video. It was so dope. For those living under a rock, dope in the nomenclature means it was cool. It was exciting, whatever you want to say. But she is talking about this freak off video and describing it as dope. Obviously, another point for the defense. Um, the defense at that point says, are you talking about the freak off? And Cassie Ventura says, I'm not sure. So she kind of realizes she gets herself caught. And then they pivot right there, the defense does, to drugs. You asked for pills. Yes, I was taking opiates at the time. Then you hear from Sean Combs again. He interjects on this message thread. He says, I want to get nasty with you. Cassie Ventura, I like that. Want to give you that. But at the same time, and then again, this got sort of a sentimental moan from the gallery. Cassie Ventura says, I need to feel safe, like you're my husband. So I feel like I'm giving you this aggressive sexual side, but I trust you. That's why I need to feel like you're my husband. So she's talking about the need for love and this feeling like she's got a husband or a confidant. And that's how she would feel safe offering up this quote unquote aggressive sexual side. The defense basically goes back and forth between Cassie wanting and not wanting the freak offs and then confronting her on that. You know, sometimes you wanted it, but then you said you didn't want it. So which one is it? Um, did you fear you'd never be his public girlfriend? They start just kind of pestering her and hammering her. And by the way, it's done very gently, so it doesn't feel that way. But these are the points the defense is trying to get across. At this point, another interruption in the gallery. There is a lawyer, I think. Lawyers are allowed electronics, but this person was using their phone, which is a big no-no. And whoever that person was, a lawyer, I presume, asked to leave, again, interrupting the media and the other people in there watching. They pivot to the romantic relationship and how it began. And Cassie recounts that it began after a kiss on her 21st birthday. That was in Las Vegas, and we heard about this party. And the defense says there were celebrities there, weren't there? And she says, yes. Who was there? And she's like, I don't know if I remember exactly. And the defense says, well, Sean Combs was there. Dallas Austin was there. By the way, I have no idea who he is other than having two cities from Texas as his name. But Dallas Austin was there. This one I know. And Britney Spears. Britney Spears was there, all at their 21st party. Basically showing that, in a roundabout way, that Sean cared about this woman. And at the age of 21, she already had so much influence by being with such a powerful person that these big time celebrities were attending her 21st birthday. And then they get into what was life like at 21. Cassie had already put out an album. She was a successful model. They asked her, did you have money for rent and a place to live in New York? And could you afford clothes? And she said, yes, I had all of that. And then at one point, the defense, and this was an interesting moment and a great win for the defense. The defense attorney, this wasn't a question. She just stopped and said, you're just so beautiful and charming. And Cassie sort of takes a second and she just says, thank you. And everyone, kind of, there's a nervous laugh that breaks out, but it's a human moment. And I really do think that the defense attorney wanted to just compliment her in that moment in time and said, hey, you're a beautiful woman. You're charming. No wonder Sean Combs wanted you. And her answer again is thank you. She continues to say how well she is doing financially. She's modest about it. She's not showing off about it, that she was lucky to have success so early in her career. And then she talks now about a music producer named Ryan Leslie, who's about 10 years older than her. And he introduces Cassie to Sean Combs. But what we find out is that Cassie has his initials tattooed on her body. And she is essentially cheating on Ryan Leslie with Sean Combs. So it sets up this, dynamic, and sets up this point for the defense that even though she's beautiful and charming and seemingly very sweet, she was, she had a side to her where her own eyes would wander, and she was cheating on this guy Ryan Leslie with Sean Combs now. The defense did about this awful performance she had on BET. I think the show is like 106th and Park, another thing I have no idea about, but you probably do. She had a horrendous performance. They asked her, why was it so bad? She said, I couldn't hear myself. I was off pitch, whatever it was terrible. Well, what did Sean do? He helped me make a YouTube video. He said, look, everyone's got a bad day. The YouTube video is really well received. She then goes on to tell everybody that she has another tattoo that says no regrets. And this comes right after basically admitting that she's got a tattoo of this former music producer boyfriend, Ryan Leslie. Then they go to an email back in time again from the very beginning, October 14th of 2007. And Cassie Ventura, this is a long email. She's asked to read it ahead of time. And she has this funny reaction where she giggles and she says, sorry, this is making me giggle because it's from 2007. Again, you see a human side of her. In this email, she talks about how she's dreaming about her future. She also says, hey, Sean, why do you think I'm a spoiled brat? So the intimation is that, she could be bratty if she didn't get what she wanted. Sad and frustrated that you don't feel I'm the right one is what she writes to Sean Combs. I am sad and frustrated that you don't feel I'm the right one. The defense jumps in and says, your relationship was complicated from the beginning, wasn't it? What does sneaky mean? Sean Combs used the word sneaky, and now they're referencing this boyfriend, Ryan Leslie, who she was cheating on Sean Combs with behind his back, and ultimately she breaks up with him. They ask about the freak-offs. They say, we're going to pivot to the freak-offs. Would you conceal yourselves with wigs and masks? Cassie says, yes, I didn't want anyone to know. Suddenly, very abruptly, they say, we're going to talk freak-offs. They ask that one question, and then they immediately pivot and said, what happened to Mr. Combs after your lawsuit in November of 2023? This is now the civil lawsuit for $30 million, of which we found out yesterday that Cassie Ventura settled in the amount of $20 million within 24 hours of that suit being filed. So they ask suddenly, what happened? There's an objection from the government. Why are we asking this? The defense says, with another line of questioning, is it fair to say Mr. Combs' career was ruined? And they stop. And they wanted to make the point that this woman in front of the jurors, by suing him, essentially ruined this man's life and his career. Now, if you believe all these allegations about the abuse, many of which I have to say I think are valid, you're going to question how you feel about that question to begin with. Do we even care that his career was ruined if he was doing this to this woman and perhaps other women who we are supposed to hear from? Now we get to a sensitive subject, the menstrual cycle. So if it's triggering or makes you squeamish, you might want to earmuff for a moment. Sean Combs messages Cassie saying, when are you on your period? And he follows it up. He says, are you horny? And then he says, you like when I moan, LOL. And Cassie Ventura responds, I like when you look at me. I like when you're on top of me and you look at me with that look. And then Cassie Ventura says, and this is a little graphic, I'll use a different word, but she uses a different word, but she says, I orgasmed so hard. I orgasmed so hard. Again, showing that Cassie not only participated willingly, but that she enjoyed the sex and was able to orgasm from it. Again, thank God, even though Carm has heard everything, it's a good thing she's in Israel right now. July 29th, 2012. So now we're shuttling ahead and we're getting towards the end here. I know this is taking a while to break it all down, but this is the cross. This is incredibly important. And by the way, today, Mark Agnafilo said, before testimony began, while they were arguing over some evidence, he said, "This is the most important witness in our case, without a doubt." So he was kind of giving a reason for why there was this massive document dump. And he said, "This is the primary witness." So Cassie Ventura is the most important witness, not only for the government, but also for the defense. Cassie Ventura on July 29th, 2012, starts to have a fantasy about another female. And she writes to Sean, "I'm starting to fantasize about seeing you with another woman." She was asked then, "Did you ever have another woman?" She says, "Yes, 2, 3, maybe 4 times." "Is this when Mr. Combs introduced you to the swingers lifestyle?" She says, "Yes." They read another embarrassing series of text threads where Cassie Ventura says, "I need your," and it's the male member word rhyming with Rick. "I need your Rick. I'm dying," she says, like she needs it so badly, and says, "I feel like I'm trapped because she can't get the sex that she wants." And then what we find out is that these comments were made after a freak off, very soon after a freak off. And again, on direct, the whole notion is it's being done against her will. She doesn't like that it's happening. But now, just hours, if not a day or so after the most recent freak off, she is asking for him sexually. And she writes, "Love you, had so much fun with you," talking about the freak offs. "I had so much fun with you." What's the jury thinking? I don't know. But it's definitely a win in some regard. It has to be for the defense here. At one point, the defense goes through a long series of kind of observations, I guess. And at one point, Maureen Comey, the government lead prosecutor, steps up and says, "Your Honor, is there a question coming?" And everyone just laughs because, again, it's that nervous energy. There was no question. You're supposed to be asking questions, not commenting. And then she offers up a comment, the defense attorney. She says, "Sean Combs put you down, but he built you up too." And the judge says, "You need to ask in the form of a question." She responds, the defense attorney, "How did Sean build you up?" Cassie Ventura's answer was, "With words. He was inspirational. He has a way with words. That's how he built me up." And suddenly the line of questioning pivots to drug withdrawal. You heard both Cassie Ventura and her talking about Sean Combs, saying that they were both addicted to opiates, and she had to go to rehab for this and also for all the trauma. I took notes here. At this point, I wrote, the cross is extremely effective. They're not forcing Cassie Ventura. They're giving her time. They're letting her have time to read the evidence in advance, so she's not caught off guard. At one point, she seemed embarrassed about reading some of these text messages. The defense counsel would be Sean, she's herself, and they're reading it back and forth. And the defense counsel could tell she was uncomfortable and basically said, "Listen, you don't have to read this. I'll read both parts." So they were gentle with her in that regard, and it didn't seem like an overpowering cross. And again, the defense counselor's name, Anna Estevea, for the defense. So that takes us through this busy morning once again. We are expecting cross to go through today and through at least the first half of the day tomorrow, which is excellent because I'm here through lunch tomorrow. I'll bring you a full wrap-up show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then we will bring you a lunch live on tomorrow's morning testimony. And then we're going to cover this from our home studio in Miami, Florida. We've got sources here now at the federal courthouse, people that I'm going to be in touch with. Not to say we're going to cover it daily, but we're going to be all over the Sean Diddy Combs trial. We're working on a Menendez Brothers show in light of the recent news for next week. There is stuff going on with Donna Adelson, so we will be wherever it is necessary. And who knows? Maybe we'll show up in Dedham, Massachusetts. I don't know. So that's a wrap on the lunch live COE. I'll let you jump in. We're down here at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, and it is the trial of Sean Diddy Combs.
Hey, Joel, really quickly, people were asking in the chat. They wanted to know if you had any visibility of the jurors reacting to the cross-ex today.
So again, there are almost no seats inside the actual courtroom, and could I've gotten in there? Probably. The only time we're seeing jurors, and it's interesting because I don't even know if the court is aware of this, is when they're coming in and out. You can see them filing in and out. You see, like from here up. I have definitely seen there's 8 men and 4 women on the jury and 6 alternates, but and I don't know if these are the alternates or not, but I have seen 3 African Americans. I've seen a middle-aged, a Caucasian-looking woman. I've seen a more elderly Caucasian male, 2 younger white males. So it's a mix. It's a cross section, but the reactions, no. And I can't see the judge either. We can't see the judge. It is literally a split screen between the witness on this side, Cassie Ventura, and the defense tables and the first 2 rows of the gallery on the other side. And that is all you can see.
All right, we're going to let you go, but I just want to let everyone know that we are redirecting you to our other live right now. We are live watching the Brian Kohberger pretrial hearing. It's supposed to be a big hearing with a lot of big decisions being made before Kohberger goes to trial in August.
Shout out to the COE, Space Coast, Meave Moen, and all the mods. Cannot do this alone. That is for damn sure. I'll see you guys at 7 p.m. Thank you all. Love you all. Love you, America. Let's get justice here at the federal courthouse.